Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. A second-rate soap opera. That's how former Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki has described the latest chapter in the internal struggle within Law and Justice, Poland's largest conservative opposition party, after it opted for disciplinary proceedings instead of immediate expulsions. With Morawiecki also stepping down as president of the European Conservatives and Reformists to focus on Polish politics, the battle over who will lead Poland's right into the next election has potentially entered a new phase. And joining us now to discuss what it all means is Aleks Szczerbiak, professor of political science at the University of Sussex. Good to have you back with us. Welcome.
Good morning. It's very good to be back.
So, I mean, this, let's call it, well, he's calling it a soap opera, Mr. Morawiecki. Where are we right now with this? And actually, just breaking now on Wednesday, apparently, is that Morawiecki has decided to open a parliamentary club in the Polish parliament. I think that's about 40 members of parliament, formerly, I suppose, of Law and Justice, and one senator. So tell us, I mean, where we are with this. What's the significance of such a club and the latest movements here in Warsaw?
Yes. So what happened yesterday was that Mateusz Morawiecki and his supporters were expecting to be formally expelled from Law and Justice, and they wanted to use this as an opportunity to launch themselves on the political stage. What actually happened at the Law and Justice Executive meeting was that their case was referred to a disciplinary spokesman. So it just basically moved forward to the next stage in the bureaucratic process. Now, this is really important because one of the key things here is that neither side wants to be seen to be initiating the split. So Mateusz Morawiecki wants to present himself as a martyr who's been expelled from the party for his political views, for the trajectory in which he wanted to take Law and Justice and the Polish right. Jarosław Kaczyński and the party leadership want to present Mr. Morawiecki as a splitter, as somebody who always had a long-term agenda of wanting to split away from the party and was disloyal and undermining party unity. And in a sense, Mr. Kaczyński's move is quite clever, because it took away that ability of Mr. Morawiecki to present himself as wronged and expelled. The formation of the parliamentary caucus is a logical step for Mr. Morawiecki's grouping. It needs to be able to organise itself in Parliament. It needs to be able to have resources, and critically, it needs to have access to parliamentary debates. Parliamentary clubs, groupings of MPs with more than 15 members, get a guaranteed priority in parliamentary debates. So I think this is something he probably wanted to do last night, presenting himself as a martyr. He wasn't able to do that because Mr. Kaczyński was quite tactically clever, but it was inevitable that this was going to be the next step in Mr. Morawiecki's political project, the formation of the parliamentary caucus.
Yeah, and I think interesting point you said, it's also very much about narrative on who controls that. As you said, no one wants to, in that sense, sort of pull the trigger here. But at the same time, is this still, let's say, a conflict that can be mended here? Is there a point of no return? I mean, is this still a strategy here by Mr. Kaczyński? Or is this just coming to a head inevitably? How do you see this work out?
It's come to a head inevitably. I mean, I don't think there's anything that they can do at the moment to try and repair the rift that there is within the party or the split that there's been. And I think that what we're going to see over the next few days and weeks is some very bitter exchanges between the two sides, because they're going to want to undermine the position of the other side. So, as I say, the Law and Justice leadership will present Mr. Morawiecki and his supporters in a very negative light. They've already started to do this. Similarly, Mr. Morawiecki will have to justify, why he's taken this action, and in order to do so, will have to heavily criticise the trajectory that's been taken by the Law and Justice leadership. So this has come to a head, and it's going to get worse over the next few days, weeks, months. The interesting thing is the next election is a year away. What's going to happen then? And the key thing here is, what is the success of Mr. Morawiecki's project? If he manages to secure a niche within the Polish electorate and look like he's going to get parliamentary representation and could play a critical role, then there's little prospect of the two sides reconciling this side of the general election. If, however, it looks like the project could crash and burn, then I think there'll be a lot of pressure for Mr. Morawiecki's milieu to kind of review their strategy. There could even be a formal reuniting as part of a kind of united right in the run-up to the next election, or short of that, a lot of Mr. Morawiecki's supporters could jump ship and simply decide to go back into Law and Justice, particularly if they were offered quite good positions on the electoral list. So the key thing here is what will happen to Mr. Morawiecki's project? Can it carve out a niche? Can it maintain that momentum for the next year, which is going to be quite a difficult thing to do?
Mm-hmm. And also at the same time, zooming out to the European level right now, we've also had now a resignation letter by Mr. Morawiecki. He was president of the ECR, the European Conservatives and Reformists, so this pan-European alliance of different groups in the European Parliament. Just significant in what sense? How do you see this? I mean, he said he's going to focus more on domestic politics. Does this harm him in any way or benefit him? How do you see it? Was this just a logical step on him now focusing on Poland?
It's a logical step. I mean, his grouping is not part of the European Conservatives and Reformists grouping, so he couldn't sustain his position formally. He obviously wants to concentrate on Polish domestic politics. You're absolutely right. But I think there's another dimension to this, which is one of the criticisms that Mr. Morawiecki's milieu has been making of the Law and Justice leadership is that it's adopting an increasingly hardline Eurosceptic position, the logic of which they argue is pushing some Law and Justice leaders to effectively argue for a position that could involve Poland leaving the EU, Polexit, as it's sometimes referred to. And his argument is that the Polish right, I mean, Law and Justice, when he's a member of it, the Polish right more generally, needs to avoid that logic of ending up in a position where effectively you're arguing in favour of Poland leaving the EU, because that's very much a minority position among Poles, however critical they might be of particular EU policies or of the trajectory of the EU in certain areas, climate policy, migration, for example. His argument is that the Polish right can't be seen to be coming out in favour of Polexit. So I think it's partly about the fact that he can't formally remain the leader of a fraction in which his grouping is not a member. It's partly about domestic politics and wanting to concentrate on that. But it's also going to be about carving out a distinctive, somewhat softer Eurosceptic position for his grouping than the trajectory that Law and Justice seems to be adopting at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this carries on. So, I mean, I don't want to force you onto a prediction at the moment, but just generally, give us your sense. What do you think the public right now thinks? I mean, looking at how the Conservatives and the right is very malleable at the moment. What does this, I think, do on public perspective here?
Well, the first thing is that it lets the government off the hook on a lot of issues where it's been a lot of difficulties. I mean, up until a few days ago, we were talking about a hospital scandal which involved financial irregularities, cronyism, elite privileges. That's been completely wiped off the news. Now all that the news is talking about is divisions on the Polish right. So obviously that's very problematic. However, I think that the key thing here is that the overall support for the Polish right has not diminished. If you add up the votes that in opinion polls for Law and Justice, for Mr. Morawiecki's grouping, and for the two confederations, the two parties to the right of Law and Justice, it's still, most voters are still supporting these groupings. The government still remains very unpopular. So the challenge here is for the right. How does it negotiate the fact that it's dealing with a very unpopular government who theoretically, it should be able to beat in the next election when it is increasingly fragmented, and where it risks, for example, a substantial number of people voting for, say, Mr. Morawiecki's grouping for the next election, but it falling short of the 5% threshold. So I think that's the issue we've got at the moment. In the short term, it's a marvellous gift for the government because Mr. Tusk, because it's distracting the public from their problems, getting them to talk about internal divisions on the right. In the longer term, it doesn't change the fact that most people still support the parties of the right-wing opposition. It simply creates a challenge for them about how they can channel that into a majority and not ensure that a lot of those votes are wasted for groupings that don't cross the 5% parliamentary representation threshold, which is the risk for Mr. Morawiecki's group.
Right, and Mr. Morawiecki has called this a second-rate soap opera. We'll see if it remains that or maybe turns into a drama or something else, but we'll analyze it, I'm sure, further in the future. Thanks so much, Aleks Szczerbiak there. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Always my pleasure.
And thank you for watching, but stay right here on TVP World for news and commentary. Goodbye.